Hello. To discuss diversity in the context of the COVID crisis, we are with Todd Sears, CEO and founder of Out Leadership, the leading global LGBT business network. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Bringing your true self at work is not so much an option these days in the COVID context. So does remote working make diversity less relevant?
Well, so the short answer is no. But a longer context is I actually think it provides new opportunity to rethink of what inclusion means, how you're connecting teams, how you're creating or disassembling hierarchy. And I'll give you a couple of thoughts of what I mean by that. So if all of your meetings are virtual, and if you think about the stereotypical context of a meeting in a boardroom where you have generally a majority figure male who is leading a meeting, and very often people with diverse perspectives don't get to raise their opinions or get to actually make their thoughts known in a meeting. Virtually, that hierarchy, if you do it as a Zoom meeting, for example, that hierarchy is taken away, right? Because everybody's square is the exact same size and everybody is participating in the same meeting. And it actually, and I've heard this from several companies and a number of leaders, has created an opportunity for more voices to be heard because of the nature of that Zoom call. And I've actually heard from several folks from a board perspective who have actually said post-COVID, they don't actually plan to go back to in-person meetings because when you take away the in-person dynamic, you take away a lot of the hierarchies and a lot of the different sort of human elements that are at play that are not positive. Obviously, everyone misses the human interaction and we will look forward to having that again. But there's some really interesting positives, I think, that have come out of the opportunity to be virtual. And I kind of look at this crisis in that way across all levels of not just diversity, but across business. I think it forces companies to think about what does matter. And from a time perspective, how employees are spending their time and how leaders are spending their time. And rethinking how you sort of engage with your clients and your employees. So I do think that inclusion matters now as much, if not more than ever. I think that the current situation creates opportunities for companies to rethink how they're connecting with their employees and supporting their employees.
Very interesting. So have you seen any good examples of what leaders can do to be more inclusive?
Yes, I have. And so I think I'll put it in a context broadly. What I've been excited to see, and if you think about, so we're all Skyping today from homes or empty offices. And at any given time, I don't know if you have kids, but I know Greg does. At any given time, Greg's kiddos could walk through or cry, or my dog could bark and interrupt. And think about that in the context of how everyone wants to be incredibly professional, right? Everyone's Facebook picture is perfect and everyone's Instagram shows a beautiful life. And we really sanitize ourselves in a business situation, right? We're always dressed up. I specifically didn't wear a white shirt today because I can't. I could wear plaid, right? And if you think about that has been the old mode, right? And I love your white shirt, Greg. So nothing against white shirts, but you think about the sort of walls that have been broken down because of that, the humanity that is now on display. And to the point of leaders who embrace that, I think are showing a much more interesting side to themselves and are connecting with people, right? I've done so many interviews with CEOs and their kids are doing homework in the background and their dog barks, right? And if you think about just 2 months ago, they would have never permitted that, right? They would have made sure their kids were gone, but they can't now. They would have made sure that the background was perfect because they would have been in their office and it would have been climate controlled and perfectly quiet. And so the idea that all of the veneer has been stripped away because of this and we're just humans, I think has been a really interesting opportunity for people to see what a leader really looks like in a very different context, right? You see the CEO of HSBC doing a webcast from his home. You would have never seen his home prior to this. And that's a really interesting sort of human piece. The second piece to that same thing is that what I think is happening is that all of the areas of our lives that we compartmentalized before this crisis, you are no longer able to compartmentalize. Right? So your kids are home if you have kids. If you have an elderly parent that you're taking care of, that person may be living with you. That may actually impact your ability to go out because you don't want to potentially transmit a disease, even if you're not sick with it, to an elderly person who's now living with you. All of the sort of outside of work pressures that prior to this, we were able to not just compartmentalize, but keep out of view you no longer can, at least for this period of time. And so what I think great leaders are doing is acknowledging that, owning that, laughing about that, right? A CEO that's being interviewed and his kid's crying in the background, and you're like, hey, I've got a 4-year-old, and boy, is it hard to be a CEO and a homeschool teacher. I'm not good at it, right? That humanizes that leader in ways that we would have never seen before. But the other thing that I think good leaders are doing is understanding the pressures that creates on their employees, because this is an incredibly stressful time for people. Just taking what I just said, the merger of the elements of your life that you were no longer able to compartmentalize, that alone is massive stress. Then having it on display, not everybody's comfortable with that. That is a whole new piece to this. So that adds a level of stress. Not to mention, where's the economy going? Am I going to have my job? And oh, by the way, there's a disease that could kill me. Right? Lots of layers of stress, most of it invisible right now. And so good leaders are acknowledging that and finding ways to de-stress. So I think there are a lot of things that leaders can do and should be thinking about. And it does kind of boil down to empathy, right? I do think that the best leaders are empathetic leaders. And we can talk about the LGBT component to that. But having empathy for your employees and seeing how every single one of them has stress that they didn't have before, they will be handling it differently. And then as they think about returning to work, that's going to be the final piece of this, right? How are companies going to navigate what will be a very challenging thing for people?